today we are gonna for episode 2. Wait, no, this is 3.
This is 3, yeah.
We're gonna make our pasta cano. So
Pasta cano, I like that. So
we're gonna have to.
why do we call it a pasta cano?
Because we're gonna make like a volcano shape out of like flour.
Right. So
stuff.
get the cup of flour, or the cup rather. We're gonna need a cup of flour. I stuck the egg in there just to keep it rolling around.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and scoop out a cup. Make sure it's all nice and leveled off. Okay. Make sure your work surface is clean.
Yeah.
Go ahead and dump it.
And then right when it's clean, you just gotta make it dirty with a bunch of flour.
So what you want to do is first you got to make your pasta cano. You just taking your fingers, making a hole like this. And what you really want to do is you're making sort of a well here,
Like
for
a crater.
a crater, right? For the egg and the water.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and, doesn't need to be crazy neat. We just need to make sure that we have space to hold the liquid that's gonna be in here. Otherwise it'll just run all over the counter.
Yeah, it's not gonna be
And it will still work, it's just
messy.
not as clean. So, and if you want to, you can beat the egg ahead of time. That's fine. If you just beat the egg right on the counter, it works just as well. There we
Make
go.
sure you don't get any shell.
Yep, I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna beat the egg right here on the counter.
Yep.
Like I said, you could beat it ahead of time, it doesn't matter. Aiden, if you would please stir in some of that water, or pour in some of that water. It's okay, just grab it. Not all of it, we're gonna do about half. This is about 3 tablespoons of water. We're gonna reserve some just in case we need some later. You can always put more water in. You cannot take more water out. So you always wanna start a little bit. And then we wanna do a little drizzle of olive oil too. We're gonna do a little drizzle of olive oil. Not too much. And then we're gonna dump in the salt. And this is where the fun begins.
Yep.
You know what to do?
No.
So basically what you want to do is you want to take your hands, start to take some of the flour from the inside and mix it in the middle, and then just slowly take more and more out from the rim.
So gross.
It is gross.
It feels like.
That's the fun part, right?
Yeah.
All right. So now you got more, it's not runny anymore. Make sure and just take it all and just start to mash it all together. If you've never done this before,
It feels weird.
it feels weird, but also doesn't feel like it's gonna come together. It will, I promise. You just gotta keep working at it. Make sure you add all the pasta in there, or add all the flour in there. It takes sometimes a while for all the moisture in this to to be absorbed by all the flour. So you kind of just have to keep going at it, keep going at it. If you keep going at it and you find that it's still too dry and still not coming together, that's why we have the extra water.
Yep.
And don't be afraid, you gotta keep going at it. It will start to feel scraggly, and like these little scraps, and that's fine.
Might need a little more water.
We might, but you want to be sure, because again, you can't take the water out once you put it in there, and then you're adding more flour, and then you add too much, and then you need more water.
It just becomes chaos.
It does. So do our best here, collect it all together, and really start to form it into a ball, and we're going to start to knead it. You know, I think you're right. We might actually need some more water.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. You don't add it all at once, just a little bit, because it will go a long way. Just keep adding it, just keep mixing it in. What do you feel there?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Might be just a tiny bit more water.
Sometimes this is just intuition, which means that you need to have some experience, which if you don't, no worries. Make it this time. It may not be perfect, and that's okay. You'll learn from it. Lots of times you'll read recipes and they'll say, mix it together until the dough comes together and it forms this nice, neat, blah, blah, blah.
And it
And
makes
you're like,
no sense.
I don't know what that means. You're right, you might not, just because you haven't done it yet, right? That's fine. I don't know how many times I did this, but I'm like, I think it's right. I
The
don't
first
know.
time, it wasn't.
It was a little weird,
It
wasn't it?
was a little weird.
So once it comes to more or less, you see now it's still a little bit scraggly, but it's starting to come together in a ball. You want to knead it for between 5 and 10 minutes. Any more than 10 is too much. You want to make sure you form a nice dough, and then we're going to give it some time to rest.
That's so weird.
This isn't, there's no yeast or baking soda. We don't need to rise it, but whenever you're working with wheat, you want to make sure that or flour rather, because of the wheat in there, you want to make sure you give the gluten the opportunity to rest. Otherwise, the texture is too much. So
Yeah.
after having kneaded it for a few minutes, and I'll set a timer. Hey Siri, set a timer 5 minutes. I'll set a timer now, and it'll give us a good opportunity to say, okay, at 5 minutes, we'll check it again, see what it's like.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't think you're gonna need much more water, if any.
Yeah, I don't think
It's
so.
starting to come together.
Yeah.
And although our nurse practitioner was a bit squeamish when it came to the meatballs,
This part's actually fun.
he seems to be right at home with the pasta dough.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna give this a few minutes. You don't need to watch us do this for the next few minutes.
Yeah.
What's the phrase of the day?
Video editing!
Video editing. So a little bit of editing magic, and we'll be back in a few. Thanks.
Yep. Bye.
Okay, welcome back. We have been kneading, or rather, I should say, Nurse Aiden has been kneading the pasta. So once you think it's got a good texture on there, again, sometimes it just comes to experience. But you want it to be smooth. You don't want it to be too wet. You want to make sure that the dough has had a chance to absorb all the liquid that it's going to absorb. And once it's been kneaded this much, now it needs to rest. So I've got this piece of plastic here, a little plastic wrap. You want to roll around in the ball, make sure it's got smooth sides.
This side might not have
Now, when you rest the dough, if you're going to use it right away, I just usually rest it right on the counter. If you're going to if you're going to use it later on in the day, sometimes I'm doing a lot of things in the kitchen. I'll start with the pasta dough that I can get it out of the way, stick it in the fridge, and deal with it later. But we're going to be using this pretty soon, so we're just going to rest it right on the counter and give it a nice little crimp, nice little roll. It doesn't have to be perfect. You do want it to have a good smooth consistency. When we go to roll it, you'll see that's kind of important, but not the end of the world. The first time you make this is not going to be perfect, and that is totally fine. First time I made pasta, it was with regular all-purpose flour. I didn't have a pasta roller. I didn't know what I was doing, and it was not disgusting, but it was not the best pasta I've had. So once you got a nice little dough there, and put it right in the middle there, and then just kind of roll it up. There you go. Make sure it's you get all the air out. You don't want to have any air in there. You can twist it up like a little candy if you want, and then just set it to the side, and we'll get started on some other things. So that is pasta episode. We're not quite done. Obviously, we're gonna have to roll it out and boil it, and then we're gonna start the meatballs here in a little bit in the oven as well. So stay tuned. Hello, welcome back to Cooking with Dr. Dewey Stevens. We are. Is this episode 2 or 3 now?
3.
I forget.
Pasta's 3.
Pasta is 3. So we are it's time to roll out our pasta. So if you remember, we made our pasta dough. Aiden here worked very hard on kneading the pasta. It has been resting for about 30 minutes, and so it is time to roll it out. Few things on pasta rolling. We have a few devices here. Now, there are a lot of different devices out there. You can get a hand device. You can get for your stand mixer. We happen to have a stand mixer, so we do have the pasta rolling devices. You do not need to have this equipment in order to make pasta. The reason that we got it is we tried making pasta several times, and rolling out by hand with a puller, it's not so much that it's not fun, but it's what is it?
Good.
Not good? It's really hard to get it thin. So if you're looking for a really good thin, it can be difficult to roll it out by hand. That said, if you roll it out by hand and get it as thin as you can, it's perfectly fine. It tastes just as fine. It might be a little bit more chewier because it's thicker. It might take a little bit longer to cook, but it's the same dough, right? So there's no difference in that. But I have found that using a device to roll it out, either if you're using a hand device or if you're using an electric device like we're going to use, it's worth it, especially if you're going to make a lot of pasta. So what we're going to do is we need to get some flour out, and we're going to coat our surface here with flour to make sure that when we lay the pasta out, it doesn't stick. But we're going to have to run this the pasta through in 2 stages. And before you start rolling it out, you might notice here on the stove here we have a big pot of water. I like to use a lot of water when we boil the pasta. That way it has a good opportunity to get all around the pasta and cook it thoroughly. So it can take a big pot of water like that a while to heat up. So I've already started that while we're going to roll out the pasta. Now, these things, if you have a stand mixer, you know that they are very powerful. And when you turn this thing on, it is very important that you do not get your fingers in these devices. They will roll your fingers right over without even skipping a beat. So make sure that you are keeping yourself safe. We're going to set this on the lowest setting, just 1, makes the biggest gap, and we're going to make it thinner and thinner over time. I think what we're going to do, we're going to portion this into 4 pieces. So roll them around in little balls, and you want to try to flatten them out a little bit, because you do need to get it in the machine. It doesn't have to be perfect. And one of the keys to this is that you put some, especially if your dough is a little wet on the wet side, you do want a little flour, because if it sticks to the machine, it is no bueno. And we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna turn on to the first setting. I'm gonna have to talk extra loud because this is a little loud. And we're just gonna put it through. This is the fun part, right? This part of it is actually, we're gonna need, this kind of gives the dough an extra little knead. So we run it through a few times on this setting, fold it again, run it through, and I usually do about 3 or 4 times on the low set.
4? There's 5.
Make sure it clicks in place.
Yep, it is.
Okay. Alright. It's like the real life spaghetti machine. Wait till we get to the spaghetti maker.
It's
and it
really
actually
cool.
cuts it into noodles. Right now we're just rolling out the pasta to get it thin so it can be cut.
And then this is 6.
This actually makes for ideal lasagna noodles. This is basically lasagna noodles at this point. Last time we made pasta, I made lasagna. Turned out pretty good, I thought.
5.
After you lay the noodles down on the surface, I like to sprinkle just a little bit of flour on top too. When we put it, especially when we put it through the cutter, it's very important that it has flour, that it be dry. Otherwise, it can stick and get stuck inside, and then it really just looks like a grown-up Play-Doh machine where you're extruding Play-Doh instead of trying to make some good pasta noodles. Was that number 6?
Yep.
Okay, so a little bit of flour on that one. One of the tricks I like to use is if you're not going to cut the pasta right away, you're not going to cook it right away, make sure you cover it with a damp tea towel or a towel or some paper towels, something that'll just keep it from drying out.
Just any towel.
If you let it sit out in the open air, the pasta will get too hard and brittle, and then it just doesn't do very well. So you make sure you keep it a little damp. Setting it on now 5.
5. That's
Almost done. If you let it drape over the side here, sometimes it can get stuck if it's not dry enough. It'll stretch it out even more, but that's fine. So we'll lay that over there. Turn this off for now. Sprinkle a little more flour on there, and then give it a little rub. Make sure it gets all over. There you go. Doesn't have to be. We're just going to give this a quick cover. Let this sit for a few minutes. Let it rest again, and we'll be back to cut the pasta. And I'm going to check on the noodles and the meatballs, and we're getting close, folks.
Yep.
So I appreciate you sticking with us. We're nearing the end.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, welcome back. We are ready to cut the pasta. So we've got our damp towel over here. We've got these all laid out. We've got a nice hot pot of boiling water, and we are ready to put the, I was about to say spaghetti cutter in. So I recommend that when you go to do this, that you be ready with hot water. Once the noodles are cut, you really don't want to have them sit very much long. Here you go, sorry. Very long. Like I said, they'll dry out, and I've tried that many times, and it just doesn't work out that well. So I don't know what they do in stores to preserve pasta. I'm sure a bunch of unnatural things, but I really don't know. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this. Remember, make sure that they've got flour on here. You do not want these things to be damp when you put them in the cutter. Otherwise, they can jam up, and it's just no fun. So we're gonna put this on the lowest setting. Go ahead and nice and slowly just put it right there in the middle. And you want to be able to. It's easy if you have 4 hands to do this, because you want to be able to catch pasta as it comes out. Floured surface does not have to be perfect. We can do this, but we will be fine. Okay. You give me that side. These are ones that are going to be long. Dropping some on the floor. If you have a dog, now it's a nice time to help you clean up. I'm going to kind of lean it in from this side. It's going nice and smoothly. Remember, the key is make sure you flour your dough, otherwise this thing will jam up. Like it is a little bit even now, because I think the dough is a little too wet, but it's fine. It'll work out just fine. So one thing to do when you are ready to cook the pasta, make sure your water is boiling. It is boiling for us. This is a good time to add some salt. Get you some flavor into the pasta dough. Okay. Now we're just gonna give it a good. Just gonna pick it up and
Chuck it in there.
chuck it in there. The other good point about having make sure that it has flour on it is make sure it won't. No, I'm gonna leave that off. To make sure that it doesn't stick to itself.
Yeah.
So just gonna give it a quick little stir. Make sure the noodles are not sticking to themselves. They're already starting to cook. Nice pot of hot water. Most pasta, store-bought pasta in a box, usually 8 to 10 minutes. I find that homemade pasta, when it's fresh like this, about half that time. We're gonna go ahead and cook it for about 4 minutes, and then we'll check it then, make sure that it's done. It's already starting to float a little bit, so it cooks fast when it's fresh like this, which is nice. Some of them did stick to themselves, but
Only a few.
it'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll probably just.
What do we say in our family? It's fine.
Or meh.
Meh. Is it just, we're not going for meh noodles, are we?
Yeah,
We're meh, really?
no. We're going for video editing.
We're going
noodles.
video editing noodles.
Yeah.
We're going for not your ordinary box pasta is what we're going for. Something, again, I like to elevate food whenever I can.
He makes it taste good. He makes it feel good.
I'm a little bit of a foodie, but I do enjoy, if I'm going to eat food, I like it to taste good, right? And I enjoy making it, so I think that little extra level of effort that you put into food, maybe just in your mind, makes it taste better to you, but I feel like others enjoy it. Make sure you have some sort of straining device, or a colander or what have you, ready. One of the tricks I like to do If I'm not going to use the noodles right away, once they are drained, coat them in some olive oil for whatever pot or bowl you're going to be using. That way, again, they won't stick together once they've been cooked. Once I drain them, I'm going to put them back in the pot and we're going to add some marinara right away. Obviously, totally your preference. Some people like to put it in the bowl and then serve the sauce on top with maybe some meatballs. I like to give the noodles a little chance to soak up some of the red sauce before it's served to somebody. But again,
It's your preference.
totally your preference. You can do whatever you like.
And we just put it in the strainer.
I'm straining. I'm going to do a little sauce. Pot. Go. Just trying to escape.
No escaping.
And some sauce.
7 foot.
A little mix around. A bit more. Alright, so we mixed a little sauce in here. You can see that it's very hot
Yeah, when
still.
you pick it up.
You should use your pot holders when you do this. Tell you what we do. And you can see we've got a finished product of homemade spaghetti and marinara. We're going to serve
Meatballs
this
are right over there.
in a bowl with some meatballs, and I think we should probably grate some Parmesan cheese. Yeah?
Yeah.
Alright, let's do that. Take a quick break, come right back. Welcome back, and then I just wanted to show everyone our finished final product of all 3 mini episodes of spaghetti and meatballs. We've got our homemade pasta and our homemade marinara and our homemade meatballs that we spent the last few hours putting together, and Mr. Aiden here was a good help, and we grated some Parmesan cheese and a little bit of black pepper on top. Sometimes I do a little parsley. You know, you can obviously you guys can do whatever you want. Sometimes I like to use pecorino romano, but you've dirty there, aren't you?
Yeah.
Pasta making's kind of messy. Maybe you can see the counter or not. Clean it up later because we're gonna go eat. But don't be afraid to get messy. And thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Bye.